true leadership isn't about doing it by yourself. It's about empowering others. Leadership lifts. If the people around you aren't being lifted spiritually, emotionally, practically, or in their skills, you're not leading. Vision is what fuels purpose. Without a clear vision, a team or individual, which is you, wanders aimlessly. I'm not aiming for things that don't matter. Followers, subscribers, all of that stuff is cool, but I'm aiming for impact. I'm aiming for adding value. I'm aiming for being a trustworthy person. Faith takes action. Faith without works is what? We all know this, dead. Courage without action is also dead. Leadership requires you to balance multiple roles. Knowing when to wear each hat ensures you're effective and authentic in your interactions. Well, hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Conversations. I'm so excited to jump into the last few episodes of 2024, and I just want to jump in and talk about how you and I can win in 2025. I think a lot of times we like the idea of winning, we like the idea of outcomes, but a lot of times we don't actually take a lot of times to strategize and come up with a plan to actually achieve our dreams, to achieve success, however we want to define that, and actually execute at the level and intentionality that we want to achieve. So winners and losers have the same goals. This next 30 minutes, we're not going to talk about goals. We're not going to talk about the idea of hypothetical ideas or hypothetical outcomes. I want to talk about actually how to win in 2025, to succeed, to reach the top this next year. After every single game, every single season, now at the end of the year, we know who won and who didn't. It's always clear who the winners are and who fell short. Winning isn't just about setting goals. Like I said, there's not goals. I don't even like using the word goals. It's about executing with intentionality, strategy, and heart. So I'm going to give you only 2 points in the next 30 minutes for us to be able to process and go through this concept of winning next year. If you want to be a winner, you need to focus on these principles. Number one, you need vision. Vision, in my opinion, fuels everything that's in our future. Every single outcome, every single idea, every single goal, every single strategy, all of it can be pinpointed back to the idea of vision. The problem is a lot of times we have strategies. Most people, in my opinion, have strategies and they call it vision. This is what I want to do. No, that's not vision. Vision is this is where I want to go. So to help you, I'm going to give you 3 questions that will help you find your vision. Again, Habakkuk 2:2 says, write the vision and make it plain. That's what we need to do. We need to write it down and we need to make it plain. I spent a lot of time brainstorming and dreaming. Creating space in my life to dream and brainstorm is what fuels my life. I want to have vision for anything I'm doing. I want to have vision for my marriage. I want to have vision for the way I'm going to parent my son. I want to have vision for the ministries that I'm a part of, the church that we're building, the people that I love and pastor. All of that pinpoints back to me having vision, but it all starts personal. Like what do I have vision for myself? In 2025, what is the vision for Josh Andrew? And it's not about making everything revolve around me, but it all starts with me because I am the only person that is the common denominator to all of that. If I don't have personal vision, if I don't know what I'm striving and working towards, it's going to be really hard to help people and my family continue to grow and push it. So vision is what fuels purpose. It's also said, vision gives pain purpose. A lot of times when we're trying to achieve the purpose that we believe God has called us to do and we experience pain, vision can actually help ignite and push you forward and continue where you are headed. Vision is what fuels purpose. Without a clear vision, a team or individual, which is you, wanders aimlessly. People wandering in their lives, people honestly leading organizations and churches, but really they're just wandering. There's no clear pathway forward. So here's the 3 questions. What am I aiming for? You need to Define your vision and goal with precision. Don't get me started on this concept of having an initial idea, and slowly, once it stops working, we like to move the target. We move the target because what we communicated out of our mouths isn't actually working. That cannot happen because why? How we communicate vision builds credibility or it breaks it. You want to be a leader, you want to be an individual who builds credibility. You want to be a credible, trustworthy leader. Learn how to execute the delivery of a vision. You got to have the right delivery. If you have the right delivery, we can work on the continued path because we know what we're aiming for. But don't think about organizations. Don't think about the teams, the churches, the things that you're building. Think about you. What are you aiming for in 2025? And again, you always got to think the prophetic side of it is what is the story you're going to tell on the other side of this dream? On the other side of the dream coming alive, what is the story you're going to tell? Who are you going to be on the other side of that? That's what I'm aiming for. I'm not aiming for things that don't matter. Followers, subscribers, all that stuff is cool, but I'm aiming for impact. I'm aiming for adding value. I'm aiming for being a trustworthy person. And for you, you need to be able to define that. I would highly encourage before you step into 2025, get alone with God. And this does not happen in minutes, this happens in hours. And dream about what God has for you in this next year. Listen to him. Listen to what he says. Because God wants to speak to you about your future. And by the way, you know it's prophetic when you start thinking and dreaming about your future the way God thinks about your future. Because he knows exactly what's happening in the future in your life. So when you start to think about your future the way God does, that's where the prophetic can be aligned. So what are you aiming for? Who are you aiming to be next year? Second question, what do I see? Have clarity on the future. A lot of times, again, people have vision, but they don't have clarity. Honestly, when you're driving, there tends to be what we would call windshield wipers in the United States. What do windshield wipers do? They clear off the dirt or water that is in the way of you being able to see forward. A lot of times we spend our majority of our time just thinking about the future, but we don't think about what's not in our future. We don't think about what we see in the future, who we see doing the journey with. Sight is so important as a leader. Sight is when your eyes are open, but vision is when your eyes are closed. So you know what you're aiming for. You've spent time, you've spent hours with God, journaling, planning, praying, and speaking the prophetic over your life and what you're aiming for. Now you need to spend time with your eyes open. What are the basic observations you can make in your life that you know you need to define, you need to remove, you need to unfollow that person, you need to spend more time in the Bible, whatever it is, you need to have clarity. Because in my opinion, good versus great, the great is always defined in structure. You can think about this in communication. You can think about this in marriage. You can think about this in your job. The good team members are people who can execute. Maybe they're aiming for the right things, but the great leaders, the great team members, the great builders are the people who can implement structure and consistently live in structure. What I'm saying is they're disciplined. But you have to be able to see. You have to be able to see the things. You have to be able to be aware of the things you're not seeing and be self-aware of the problems in your life, the gaps in your life. Gaps are not a sign of weakness. They're a sign of grace from Jesus to be able to learn and grow because Jesus fills in our gaps and continues to grow and stretch us. So what am I aiming for? What do I see? And the third question is, what am I trying to achieve? Establish measurable milestones for success where vision exists. Okay, so what am I trying to achieve? What is the outcome I'm trying to actually win in? You need to be able to establish measurable milestones. What gets measured gets managed. What I value, what I'm trying to achieve should be reverse engineered. I'm a huge believer and a huge proponent on reverse engineering. Again, always start with the outcome. Always start with, at the end of the journey, what is the story you're going to tell about God's grace in your life? When you can live in that world, now we can work backwards and understand what it's going to take to get there. So hypothetically, by December next year, it's not about success, it's about significance. So I'm aiming for blank. I see blank, and I'm going to achieve blank. So again, you need to be able to establish measurable milestones to be able to achieve. So the 3 questions that'll help you find a vision is this: what am I aiming for? What do I see? And what am I trying to achieve? So here's, by the way, we'll talk more about vision. This is where vision exists. These are the 4 indicators that you're living in vision. And I've talked about this before in the podcast, and I believe it's important to just continue to reiterate things. Expansion, energy, courage, conviction. If you have those 4 things, you are living and existing where vision exists. Expansion. Vision opens the door to growth. You want to grow? You need to have vision. You want an outcome? You need to have vision. Personally, spiritually, organizationally, individually, it's all about vision. It's all about expansion. There should be indicators that it's actually growing. What's crazy is a lot of times, again, like I said, leaders, particularly in the church, when we tend to lose, what happens is we start to move the goals. We start to push back instead of going forward. The kingdom of God is expanding. It's moving forward. The kingdom of God is not a monument, it's a movement. When the kingdom of God is looked at as a monument, you will have a sense that it's not expanding. What I'm telling you right now is the gates of hell will not prevail, and Jesus will build his church. He's been building his church for 2,000 years through people. The people that he builds his church through are people who have vision and understand we can't lose. There's a lot of victimhood mentality when it comes to leaders because they're insecure, and really what they're doing is their world is revolving around them. When the world revolves around God and worshiping him, what ends up happening is you experience the fruit you've been striving for and working towards just to get to the point where you understand you can't produce that on yourself. You can't expand the church by yourself. You can't have another awesome, just cool idea by yourself. It's all about doing it with him. The whole point is doing it with him. So where vision exists, it brings expansion. It also brings energy. There's a clear direction that is inspiring passion and ignites momentum. You don't have to manufacture this. The times where we have to manufacture energy or manufacture momentum is fleeing. It doesn't work. And enforcing that, by the way, is a byproduct of not having a clear vision and not knowing what you want to see and what you were trying to achieve. There should be energy. There should be a level of, man, this is exciting. God is doing something special. And you don't have to force yourself to say that. You genuinely, when you lay your head at night, you know there is energy behind what we're doing. Not to say that the newer age or the new progressive thought around just energy and vibes. What I'm saying, though, is there should be passion. There should be an excitement and unity around the mission and vision of what you're trying to do. Number 3, courage. With vision comes boldness to step into the unknown. You get a right vision from God, there's courage that's behind it. They're saying, I am going to do this with him because I know I can't lose. Courage, by the way, isn't just a forced excitement. That's not what I'm saying. Courage isn't even faith. You can have faith, but there's still sense to be this level of courage that we're not willing to do. And courage takes action. Faith takes action. Faith without works is what? We all know this, dead. Courage without action is also dead. So for you and myself, having a level of courage comes from understanding where our vision comes from and what we're trying to achieve with God. And last one, conviction. You stay grounded in your why even when challenges arise. Conviction is where I lead from. Conviction is what I think about. And again, it's not about convenience. Generosity has never been about convenience. Serving, it's not about convenience. If you want a convenient life, this is not the podcast and it's not the YouTube channel for you. Because I'm not saying live a life of convenience. I'm not saying lead and serve out of just convenience. Nothing about following Jesus is just out of mere convenience. You know, I don't lead just because it's convenient. I don't wake up at 4 a.m. on Sundays because it's just convenient. Our lives are out of conviction. Why? I'm grounded in my why. So for you, take a moment and reflect. Do you see this in your life? Do you see this in your team? Do you see this in your church? Do you see expansion, energy, courage, conviction? If not, we need to go back to the vision. Answer those 3 questions. Think about it. Again, it's been hours, not minutes with Jesus. And I promise you, you will come out of that with a clear, concise vision that is big enough for other people to thrive around you, next to you, and under you. So number 1, you need vision. Number 2, you need to delegate leadership. True leadership isn't about doing it by yourself. It's about empowering others. Leadership lifts. If the people around you aren't being lifted spiritually, emotionally, practically, or in their skills, you're not leading. When you are in a true leadership environment, there is a sense of lifting. There's a sense of development. There's a sense of we're continually growing. You as a leader, you know what your responsibility and mandate is to lift the lid. Whatever lid somebody is living in, they're hitting their lid, your job is to lift the lid. Your job is to help them see more, see bigger, be challenged, grow, continually to not produce condemnation or shame, but to produce boldness and confidence of them knowing who they are and knowing who they are not. Again, leadership is not about yourself. We know this. So how do we do this? How do we delegate? How do we not dump? How do we not just think about the bad things that I don't want to do, so I'm just going to hand it off to somebody? I love thinking about people before I think of their position. So for me, I'm always thinking about what is this person naturally gifted in? What are the areas or the gaps that they need to continue to develop and evolve in? And I want to strategically think about decades, not days. So in a decade, who is this person going to be? Who, them plus Jesus equals blank. Time doesn't solve everything. Time with a plan does, though. So for me, I'm not verbally saying this plan. I know because I spend time in prayer praying about the people that God has put in my life, and I know my job is to continue to grow them and lift their lid. So for me, I'm going back to this core principle. You teach what you know, you reproduce who you are. The example you set determines the kind of leaders you develop. I'll say that one again. The example you set determines the kind of leaders you develop. You want to know if you're an effective leader? Look at the people. You want to know you have a leader, by the way. You're looking for people at your church, your team, your business who are leaders without titles. Look at the people. Who's following them? Who's listening to them? Who's being reproduced? You teach what you know. You can teach all the awesome things, all of knowledge, but at the end of the day, you are going to reproduce who you are. So for me, delegation starts with understanding. It all goes back to being self-aware. I know I'm going to reproduce challengers. I'm going to reproduce visionaries. I'm going to reproduce culture setters, culture pace people. I'm going to reproduce people who defend culture. And I know my gaps, and I know the things that I'm going to continue to work on. What I'm trying to say is I always have a plan. There's always a plan. There's always an execution, again, but it all starts with on the other side of it. In a decade, I know who this person's going to be. And I live in the prophetic a lot, and I know that some people, that is not their gifting, but I do believe you can practice this, again, by being in prayer. God always speaks to you about his people because you're the leader of his people. So you teach what you know, you reproduce who you are. And I said it before, but we need to delegate. We don't dump. Delegation is not just about task management. I'm not talking simply about tasks. I'm talking about entrusting people with purpose. There's a mission attached to what you're having them own and steward. There's an outcome attached to what you're asking them to own and steward. Tasks are tools to build people, not the other way around. I say that every single episode because I just believe it so much so. We don't use people to do tasks. We use tasks to build people. Like I just talked about, those gaps, those things that I know that they need to continue to work on, their blind spots. We use tasks to continue to challenge those gaps and their strengths to continue to develop and evolve them. So consider these approaches. Okay, so this is just a practical example of if you're leading a team at your church or you're leading a team in your business, the difference. This is a dumping mindset. Hey, do you want to help me push road cases? No, I don't want to help you push road cases. Hey, do you want to do this assignment that I don't want to do? Do you want to process the things that I don't want to do? It's not inspiring at all. And you're not even thinking about the person's outcome, the person's gaps, the person's weaknesses and strengths. This is a delegation mindset. Hey, do you want to help me change the world? What is the difference? There's a mission attached to what you're saying. And when you align tasks with visions, you invite others to see the bigger picture, and they'll jump in with excitement and passion. Like I said, look at the passion, look at the conviction, look at the energy. Those are the things that tell me whether you are dumping on somebody or you are delegating. A simple delegation might be a meeting, it might be a conversation, it might be them owning a specific idea or principle that they see that they're challenging and that they are aware of. And for me, yes, you need to have a vision and you need to delegate leadership. The last thought here is we need to be aware of the hats that you and I wear. Leadership requires you to balance multiple roles. Knowing when to wear each hat ensures you're effective and authentic in your interactions. So what am I saying? You need to be aware of the person. You should be yourself in every single room. What I'm saying is be aware of who you're talking to and how you're talking to them. Every single interaction, you could potentially be in 5 meetings, and at each meeting, there needs to be the different version of you. The same person, but there's different parts of myself that everybody gets. So here's the 3 hats that you and I wear every single day. And this is specifically for church leaders. And this can be in the context of business, absolutely. You need to be aware of these 3 hats. The leader hat. This hat is always on. This hat does not go off. Why? You can't turn leader off. You're a leader. You're a person of influence. As a leader, you're the one casting vision, steering the ship, and keeping the team aligned. You must remain steadfast, proactive, solution-oriented, even in challenging situations. What am I saying? A leader doesn't take the leadership hat off. Every single conversation I have, every single person that I sit at coffee with, every meeting that I get on Zoom, every session or thing that I'm teaching on, or I'm leading a culture moment, whatever it is, the leader hat is always on. Every single interaction I have with anybody in our church, that hat remains. Why? The vision matters that much. The vision that God spoke to early pastors matters to me that much. The second hat is the pastor hat. The pastor hat is this. It's slow to speak, quick to listen. This hat is about shepherding people's hearts. Leadership isn't just about tasks and goals. It's about caring for people's souls. What am I saying? I always have my leader hat on. A lot of times, the majority of the time, I have my pastor hat on. What is my pastor hat? I'm slow to speak. I'm actually listening more than I'm talking. A test if you're actually a pastor, by the way, is you finish your coffee or food before the other person does. If you finish your coffee and food before they do, you're not pastoring them because you're talking more than you're listening. A pastor is there to listen, and it is shepherding their heart. Be empathetic, listen well, and provide guidance that nurtures both their spiritual and personal growth. That's what a pastor does. You and I, we're nurturing people's hearts. We aren't the mediator between them and God. That's not healthy. But what we are is we are their champion. We are there to listen to them, to encourage them, to challenge them, to rebuke them, to push them to be more like Jesus. So the pastor hat. Last one, the friend hat. I'm here for you. A lot of times, this moment or this hat is, I don't have anything to say. I'm just going to be here for you. There are moments when people don't need advice or direction. They just need you. They need your presence. And this isn't just sad stuff too, by the way. You can be friends. I took a couple of our guys to a Phoenix Suns game. Like, we just had fun and I was their friend, but my leader hat did not come off. As a friend, you step back from the leader pastor role and simply walk alongside somebody in their journey. Knowing which hat to wear is, by the way, not your responsibility to explain which hat you're wearing. You don't have to consistently describe and explain the type of hat you're wearing in those moments. That is the other person's self-awareness that they need to be able to be aware. This is my leader talking to me. This is my friend listening to me. This is my pastor guarding me and protecting me. That is not your responsibility to define. You be yourself. You be the leader God's designed you to be. You be the pastor that He's called you to be. And you be the friend that everybody needs. So wrapping up here, winning is a choice. It is not on accident. You don't win on accident. It's a result of having clear vision, building others through delegation, balancing your roles, and knowing who you are. So ask yourself these 3 questions as we wrap up. Is my vision clear? Not is our vision clear. I'm not talking about a global vision, an organizational vision. I'm talking about your vision for your life, for your leadership journey, for you as a human being, you as a son or daughter of Jesus. Is your vision clear? Second question, am I lifting those who lead? Am I continually growing and challenging and pushing those people that I'm responsible for? And am I wearing the right hat in the right moment? When you commit to these principles, you'll not only win, you'll build a team and a legacy that thrives long after the game is over. Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. I'm just believing that 2025 is going to be a year that you win, that you see the things that you've been praying for, that the outcome of 2025 is an answered prayer, the things that you are believing, I'm believing for in faith with you. I just believe in you so much. I believe the best is actually yet to come in your life. Thank you again. If you like this episode, if you're part of our community, please leave a review on the podcast, on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you're listening to this, and on YouTube. Thank you so much for being active. Maybe leave a comment of something that challenges you or you're going to continue to grow in, or something that I can be praying for you with. We would love to partner with you. Again, thank you so much. We will see you next week.